Hello, everyone. Luke here from Serious Comics, and today I want to talk about something that's been widely discussed across the internet, all across YouTube, various blog posts, different articles, and that's the comparison of power between Thor's new weapon, StormBreaker, and the Infinity Gauntlet powered by all six of the Infinity Stones. Well, one of the first things we want to take into consideration here is that both of these devices, both of these weapons, are basically made out of the same or very similar material, and that's the Uru metal that is forged from the heart of a dying star. Would be nearly impossible for any type of human to even think about picking up. Now, aside from the magical properties of these devices, let's look at the construction of the devices itself. Now, StormBreaker was forged. We got to witness the forging of StormBreaker, along with something else that I really want to point out, and that's the fact that Eitri did not forge one weapon that particular day. He forged two weapons, one of which isn't shown, and we're going to see proof of that here in just a few moments. But first, let's get back to the weapon. The properties of this weapon that we're looking at are the properties that we believe to be true from the MCU's interpretation of this weapon. Now, StormBreaker was cast with basically the same process, but one thing that did change, or one thing that was really brought to our attention, although you had to be very astute in looking at these scenes and break them down just frame by frame to see any type of clues I might see that I might have missed the first go-around when we watched this movie in the theater. And one of the clues I saw when I broke it down frame by frame watching the casting process is what we're going to see right here. Now, during this process, we can see holding the gate together, or holding it open, I guess you should say, so that the energy from the dying star could make it through the portal and would produce enough energy to therefore melt this Uru metal so that it could be cast into a device of some type, and in this case, it was StormBreaker. But if we look in the corner up here, if we look at this one little shot here, we're seeing that we're not just casting StormBreaker. There's something else being cast in this shot too. And no mention of this is ever made anywhere in the movies. The Russo brothers that I know of all the interviews I've seen, I haven't seen any mention of this from them. And if I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments below. But what this does tell me is that Eitri was thinking far enough ahead that he knows more than one weapon is going to be necessary to defeat the weapon that he cast for Thanos. Now, if we look at the Infinity Gauntlet itself, and StormBreaker itself. StormBreaker is a king's weapon, the most powerful in all of Asgard. So I would feel safe to say that the Infinity Gauntlet without the Infinity Stones could not stand up to StormBreaker. After all, StormBreaker can summon the Bifrost, and we can see how easy that Thor is able to channel his powers through this device. And this causes extreme destruction, as we can see from Thor's entry right here. And this has to be one of the most dramatic and awesome entrances by any superhero in the history of mankind. And here it is. And as we can see, as soon as Thor hits the ground, he throws StormBreaker, which is going to return right back to him the same way that Mjolnir did. And Thor at this point begins to just decimate any opponent that's in his way and takes out the majority of the enemy's spacecraft that have landed right on the outskirts of Wakanda here. So we can see that this weapon is a very powerful weapon. This weapon may very well be one of the top 10 weapons in the entire MCU. And I do believe that due to just its durability, the fact that the God of Thunder himself, Thor, can channel his power through this weapon, and the fact that this weapon can summon the Bifrost. And you could pretty much consider some other things as it being basically unbreakable, with the exception of beings with extreme power like we saw Hela do with Mjolnir. So this is an extremely powerful weapon. But if we put this weapon up against Thanos with no Infinity Stones, then I definitely give the edge to Thor. Pretty much hands down, I think Thor would be able to take Thanos with this weapon if Thanos did not have the Infinity Stones. But having the Infinity Stones, this changes everything. And let's break this down. Let's break this down mathematically. We know there are 6 Infinity Stones, and we know that each stone is infinite in its power, which basically means it's not going to run out of power. And we don't really have a baseline for this, because when we start making mathematical calculations, I'm a robotic engineer by trade, so I do a lot of mathematical calculations, and infinity is a number that's pretty hard to work with. But some things that we do know about the stones is that the stones are good or valid only in their own universe. If I take a set of infinity stones and I take them to another universe, then these are not powerful like they are in our universe here. So for all the theories that think that they're going to go from universe to universe, doing universe hopping, that the Infinity Gauntlet does not work the same that way. That's been proven in the comics before, and I'll try to leave a link in the description with the exact comics or the series of comics I was talking about here and getting this reference material from. But let's try to break this down in a way that the human mind can easily understand it, because I know me personally, when I think about the number infinity, it doesn't end. It doesn't end. It keeps going. It keeps going. It keeps going. And that's true with mathematics, because no matter what value you're ever looking at, you can always add 1 to it. You can always add 1,000,000 to it. Numbers never stop growing. So just for the sake of the video here, let's look at this in a percentage form. Let's say 100% of the Infinity Stones' power when they are gathered together and working in unison, because we know the stones are sentient, so that they do think together, they do work together, and basically when these stones are grouped together, they become a team, which means if one of the stones needs to draw off another to complete its action, it's able to do that. And especially with the Power Stone being in the mix, because the Power Stone is what gives the power to these other stones. So it can increase, decrease power as necessary. First, let's think about how smart Thanos truly is. Now, in the comics, although we know that nothing we talk about is going to be 100% accurate to the comics, and I'm glad it's not, because I know how the comics end, and I would much rather that Endgame did not end exactly as the comics do. That would be a little disappointing in my part. But let's go with what Thanos himself said. In this clip right here, listen to what Thanos says.
I'm a survivor. With all 6 stones, I could simply snap my fingers. They would all cease to exist. I call that mercy.
So we know that in this clip, Doctor Strange had said that Thanos was going to use his power to wipe out half the life in the universe, which would be trillions upon trillions of living beings, probably even more than that. But Thanos quickly replied that with a snap of his fingers, he could wipe all life from the universe, all of it. And so that tells us that on a percentage form, if Thanos is only going to snap and only going to wipe out half of the people in the universe, then he's only using half the power of the Infinity Stones. But hold up, we can't make this calculation from here. We can't do that, because Thanos said with the snap of his fingers, he could end all life in the universe. He did not say destroy the universe. He did not say create a new universe. And we all know that the Infinity Stones are capable of destroying, literally destroying, the entire universe. So let's go with that as being 100% of the stone's actual power. If the stones can destroy the universe or create a new universe, then that's their maximum power for the argument of the video here. So if that's the truth, then let's just go a step further and say that if we kill, or if we wipe out basically all of the living beings in the universe, then that leaves nothing but particles, matter, things that are inanimate, rocks, things like that. So let's just say that that leaves half of the matter in the universe still in existence, although none of it would be sentient, none of it would be living. So half of the Infinity Stone's power can wipe out the entirety of life in the universe. Thanos said he's only going to wipe out half the life in the universe. And he does. With a snap of his fingers, he wipes out half of all living entities in the universe. So if half of the Infinity Stone's power could wipe out all living beings in the universe, then half of that power is all it would take to wipe out half of the living beings in the universe. So at this point, we're down to Thanos only using 25% of the Infinity Gauntlet's maximum capacity. Now, we see the damage that was done when Thanos uses this 25% of the maximum capacity of these stones. It basically looks to me like it melts the gauntlet onto his arm. And we can see that from the preview for Endgame, or the trailer for Endgame. And we can also see it at the very end of Infinity War itself. Not only does it seem to mold or melt, basically, this gauntlet onto Thanos' hand, it also damages his entire left arm, all the way up his shoulder, and all the way up his neck. And in the preview of Endgame, or the trailer of Endgame, we see that Thanos is walking with a considerable limp, as we can see here. Which brings us back to StormBreaker versus the Gauntlet. Okay, as we see in this scene, Thanos just has placed the 6th stone onto the Gauntlet. He receives this normal power surge that he feels to himself, and there's no telling exactly what he's feeling with this, but he receives this power surge, and just as he's regaining control of himself, he's getting his faculties back. Suddenly, as we can see here, Thanos is hit pretty hard with a really large blast of lightning coming from the Thunder God himself, Thor. But then he hops right back up, because Thanos being Thanos, one of the strongest beings in the universe, and immediately turns, aims, and fires. But a lot of times when we counterattack, when someone attacks us, and our counterattack is to slow them down, to stop them, or to get them out of the way so that we have more time to react, it's usually not 100% massive, every bit of power we have. And we can see this due to the fact that the gauntlet is not damaged during this process. The general overall color of the blast that he sends at Thor is very whitish in color, which tells us that that's a combination of all the stones, because we know that when it comes to colors, the bright light, when we talk about light, white is the combination of all light, and black light is the absence of light. So this tells us that he has combined the power of the Infinity Stones to fire a blast at Thor. We notice the gauntlet is not damaged. The gauntlet's not even steaming. It's not sparkling. It's not smoking. So he hasn't overused it, which means we know that the gauntlet is completely damaged, or very, very badly damaged, when he used approximately 25% of his power. And that's why I say when he stretches his arm out and he fires this wave of energy, this blast wave at Thor, then he's probably just reacting. This is more of a reactive attack than it is a preemptive all-out strike. He didn't see Thor coming and ambush Thor with a massive attack. He's defending himself at this point. So he simply reacts by pointing and shooting. And when he does this, I believe that he's using just a small amount, probably maybe 5 to 10%, if that, of the Infinity Stone's power itself. And one reason is, if StormBreaker is cast from the same material that the Infinity Gauntlet is cast from, then it's quite capable of holding, using, or resisting the magic of the stones. And that's the whole purpose of casting the Infinity Gauntlet out of the Uru metal, is because it can withstand the power of these stones when they're used. So it makes a lot of sense to think that a weapon that was cast out of the same material, and a weapon that was designed to be one of the most powerful weapons in the universe, could stand up to a very small percentage of the Infinity Stone's blast. When we talk about compare the power of the two weapons, StormBreaker, I love it. I'd love to have one. I'm sure everybody would. And that's a massive weapon. He's going to be able, it looks like, to use the Bifrost to go anywhere he might need to go with it. He's going to be able to use it to withstand a lot of the energy Thanos is going to throw at him with the Infinity Gauntlet, if it goes down that way. But one-on-one, StormBreaker versus the Infinity Gauntlet without the Infinity Stones, StormBreaker wins hands down. So thanks a lot for checking the channel out. But help out the channel if you can. Like, subscribe, share the videos on social media, and thanks a lot for watching. This is Luke from Serious Comics, and for now, out.